Howdy, y'all.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Larry. Welcome to
Sumo Kaboom.
Sumo Kaboom,
where we talk about all things sumo.
Yeah, we're continuing with our Oyakata series this week. I am going to be talking about the Sakaigawa stable headmaster Oyakata dude. Who will you be talking about?
And I'm going to be talking about Kaio, also known as Asakayama Oyakata. So,
stay tuned if you want to know who the heck these men are.
Exactly. Men worthy of knowing because they had quite the career when they were wrestling. At least my guy did. I don't know if your guy did. I assume he did because they don't usually let anybody become an Oyakata.
That's right.
Only a couple bits of news this week. The main one being Teretsuyoshi, strong little man. Teretsuyoshi had his haircutting on June 23rd, and it was a tear-filled event. Both he and I think pretty much everybody that loved him, I think like Ted and Nafuji cried too when he cut his hair. I don't know, but it was an emotional event when Takara Fuji, who was his, when he was coming up, I believe Teretsuyoshi was Takara Fuji's attendant for a while. And he said, "Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for being my attendant." And then Teretsuyoshi just started bawling and crying. And there had been talk that he was going to try his best to not cry. And then, of course, when Ted and Nafuji came up there, he was just like a waterfall.
Because all these guys trained with him.
Exactly.
For years. They all trained together.
They're like brothers. So he said about his top not being cut off, it felt like part of my body was being torn off. But the minute it was removed, he felt his head was much lighter. And so...
That led to the best quote of the entire week.
Yeah, which was, I think, Ted and Nafuji said to him backstage.
Quote. I've got it right here.
Perfect. Quote it then.
Quote. "I never realized what a nicely shaped small head you have."
Exactly. Well, I saw it slightly different, but we always deal with hilarious translations. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what he said. He's like, you're the shape of your head. He had noticed it for the first time, which I kind of think is a common thing. A lot of times, like it happened last week when Ishiura got his haircut, and everybody was like, "Oh,
that's what your head looks.
That's what your head looks. Yeah." Anyway,
or they said, "You're a fine fox."
Yeah, exactly. You're a fine fox. Exactly. At least I said that. So about him, he hasn't mentioned too much about his future other than he plans to start his own business and will be commuting between his hometown of Awaji Island and Tokyo. So he's not saying too much because he's getting his business started. But I wonder what that's going to be. But it's interesting. He's not staying to be an Oyakata or anything like that. He's going to go and be like an ambassador, I think, between his small hometown island, who adores him, and Tokyo. So that's cool.
I'm hoping it's going to be something as unusual as he is. Because he is just the master of just odd, quirky things.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it will have something to do with lizards and amphibian fish or something. Like, he is the only person I've ever known that had acrobats at his retirement ceremony.
Well, I know he's a little odd because I watched one day, it was like Teretsuyoshi is live, and I was like, there were like 50 people watching, and I was like, I'm going to watch. I don't know what's happening. But it was him like sitting upside down on a bed. Like, so it was him upside down, essentially, just talking to another wrestler, just on the phone. And I was like, his voice is higher than I thought it was going to be. That was the one thing I remembered. But I was like, this is interesting, dude. He's like, I'm going to go live right now. I'm just laying on my bed. I'm upside down, hanging off the bottom of it. And I'm just going to go live right now.
I love it.
And so, yeah. But about his Oyakata and what he said about Teretsuyoshi, he said, this is from Nikon Sports, or at least translated by Google from Nikon Sports. He was a small but hardworking sumo wrestler who embodied the saying, "Small can overcome big." I gave him the Shikona Teretsuyoshi, hoping that he would work hard to inspire and brighten the people of his hometown, Awaji. I believe that he will never forget his gratitude and will continue to walk the path of being a person who brightens the world. Which I thought was a really nice thing to say.
That is a nice thing to say.
Yeah. So congratulations to him. And once we figure out what this business is, we will put it on our spreadsheet of sumo wrestlers to support somehow.
There you go.
Nakamura Oyakata just started his own stable and is already making waves because he is doing all sorts of strange training, meaning he is outside of the box, y'all. Nakamura, just so you can remember, he was Yoshikaze, and he was helping out as an assistant coach at Kiseno Sato's stable until last week or the week before when he branched off and has his own stable now.
Got it.
So he has taken some of these things which are in line with modern sports medicine theories about how these guys wrestle and how they work out. He does not have morning practice. He has decided to have afternoon practice at 3:30 p.m. So, you know, the rest of the sumo world gets up in the morning and has morning practice. And I think this is something similar to what Kiseno Sato has done as well. The training schedule isn't the traditional one where they get up, they don't have a breakfast, they just like pound on each other for, you know, a few hours and then they have a massive lunch. This is, they have a light breakfast and then I don't know exactly what they do in the morning, but perhaps different types of exercises. They eat a light breakfast, they have lunch, and they have dinner. They have all three. But they also randomly get a daily oxygen pill, which helps them with fatigue.
There's an oxygen
pill?
pill?
I don't know if that's translated weirdly, but I was like, what's an oxygen pill?
That doesn't seem possible.
I don't know. They do shiko, but they like hold the shiko for 10 to 20 seconds. Like some just different approaches to some of the sumo basics. It's kind of just interesting. They train on a ladder and they also take 2 days off a week. This is a new approach that you see in some of these younger guys' stables. And, you know, Kiseno Sato went on and got his, you know, master's in sports medicine or sports science. So I imagine he brought some of that back to his stable, and then Yoshikaze or Nakamura Oyakata now observes some of that working. But he did say that like he's making big changes, big moves. If it fails, it'll be on his shoulders, but he's like, I got to try it at least on my own terms for now to see if it works.
Got it.
So,
well, good luck.
Yeah. So that's all I've got.
Awesome.
I guess I'll start and talk about wrestler. You may know him as Kaio. Right now he is Asakayama Oyakata, the man who has a poodle. An adorable poodle now.
The guy we see on social media with that brown poodle. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Got it.
He's got a big head.
He does have a very large head.
He has a large head.
With a small poodle.
Right.
He loves to take pictures of himself with the poodle.
Yeah. And what I realized as I went down the rabbit hole of him, the most exposure you can get to him is pretty much on Instagram.
Yeah.
And he writes, you can tell, I think he writes his own posts. Sometimes it might be the Okami-san, but you can tell the heartfelt emotion that's in it, especially when it's referring to
the poodles.
The poodle is mainly from him.
Well, it used to be two
yeah,
poodles.
I'll tell you a little bit about that.
Okay, good.
But it is half, I would say, well, I don't know. I'd say it's 75% wrestler, like 25% poodle.
Yeah.
But depends. Some weeks it's half poodle, half wrestlers. And that's kind of what I love about it, is that it's heavy on the poodle, heavy on the sumo. Yeah. I'm not disappointed in his feed at all.
Oh, me neither.
Plus, it really is like a slice of life and how he feels about wrestlers and how he feels about his dogs. So it gives you just a sense of who this big sweetheart kind of is. So anyway, he was born in 72, but I'm convinced he was born in 52 because I do not believe he's just a couple of years older than me. I'm pretty sure he's way older. But he was born in 72. And he's from Fukuoka, and he is a former Ozeki Kaio.
Oh, Ozeki.
One thing you should know about when he came into the sport at the same time as this, that I was there, that it's Akebono, Musashimaru, Wakanohana, Takanohana, and him.
Like if you were in Japan doing sumo, you would have been doing sumo with him.
Yes.
Now you were in Japan singing and dancing instead.
Right. I was tap dancing.
But if you did a different kind of sport and you were male and you were much larger, then you could have been doing sumo with him.
Right. But it explains why, like when I tell you about his career, why he is well known, but also respected because he was an ozeki at a time when it would have been really hard to be an ozeki with those 4 yokozunas, right?
Yeah.
And had an extraordinary career in length and staying power. I didn't really know that much about. He looks like a total bruiser, but he is clearly a softie, as we can tell. He had 2 poodles, one named Chevy, one named Ford. And, or in Japanese, Chebi, I imagine, but Chebi is no longer with us. But Ford is still heavily featured on the Instagram. Ford and Chebi. But Chebi was the mother, I believe, of Ford.
Oh.
And so,
okay.
Yeah. And
well, it also tells you this guy likes cars, too.
Yeah. He
likes automobiles.
Yeah. He debuted in the sport in 1988. Within 5 years, he was in Makauchi. Another 7 years after that, he made it up to Ozeki. But here's the fact that blows my mind. He was an Ozeki for 11 years.
Wow.
I think. Did I do that math right? From 2000 to 2011. Okay?
Wow.
He is the longest serving Ozeki of all time in terms of number of tournaments fought.
That's incredible.
Now listen to this record and you tell me, how is he not a yokozuna? He had 5 yushos. He was a runner-up in 11 tournaments. He won 15 special prizes and 6 kimboshi. So you tell me how on earth, in that era of time, and he still was that close, he was not promoted to yokozuna. So there's a number of things that were mentioned in the press and everything that I read about him. But he holds more records than you could possibly believe. He was the only wrestler besides Chiyono Fuji, like revered Chiyono Fuji of legend, hot bod Chiyono Fuji, who reached 1,000 career wins. He surpassed Chiyono Fuji's career wins in 2011, and with 1,045, and I think came in fact, even higher than that he went. If you think about being in sumo for that long and being an ozeki for that long, he was there like forever. Like, I think he retired at 39, and he held ozeki for that long. Like, that's incredible, right?
Yeah.
So he grew up doing karate and judo, but he wasn't really convinced that sumo was his sport. But like it always happens, there's probably a big kid at the karate
and they're
shop.
Like, you know what you should do instead.
And they're like, you're big. Have you ever thought about sumo? And they're always like, no, I don't want to do sumo. And they're like, just come one practice, right? So, of course, he was, I'm sure scouted at a very early age. He actually joined sumo after junior high and joined Tomozuna stable. And you might know that Tomozuna stable name because Kaisei, so Asakayama, when he became an Oyakata, one of the wrestlers he had was Kaisei. And Kaisei is now Tomozuna Oyakata. So that's the name within that stable lineage. But anyway, he joined the Tomozuna stable and was convinced that by whoever the scout was, it may have been Tomozuna Oyakata, that he could make it all the way up the ranks. And like I said, he came in a time that other powerhouses came in. And he did very well. He spent, he holds also, these are also records he holds. The number of tournaments spent at Sekiwake, 21.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And, yeah. Isn't that crazy? Also, 14, this is kind of a strange one I saw, but 14 tournaments consecutively ranked in Sanyaku without making Ozeki. So the guys who never make it up there, he was still there for 14 before he...
Consecutive.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. He was 28 years old, and it took him 44 tournaments to reach Ozeki. which is actually another weird record, the slowest ever. So that makes sense when you hear about how long he was in Sanyaku. It took him a really long time to get up to Ozeki.
But then stayed there.
Stayed there for ever.
Wow.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. So he had challenged he had a number of tries for Yokozuna. And he got really, really, really close. And there was one story I read about. He actually, maybe it was on Wikipedia I read. He tried for it like 4 times, and all 4 times he failed, which means he had like 2 back-to-back tournaments and just, was one short of that. Like he did that like 4 times.
Jeez.
Brutal. And think of it still in the era of these greats. So I'll read this from Wikipedia. In a match against Taka Misakari, who is one of our favorites, on the 5th day, September 2003, Kaio was easily pushed out of the ring by Taka Misakari's left thrust. Kaio had won 11 matches in the May tournament, runner-up, 12 matches in the July tournament, winner, and was aiming for Yokozuna title in the September tournament, but ended up with 7 wins and 8 losses. And that forced him from his Yokozuna title to Kadoban. Kaio had always criticized Taka Misakari for slacking off in the training ring. So he was furious with the results. Immediately after the defeat, he left the ring in a sulky state, and in an interview immediately afterwards said in a loud voice, "He doesn't show his strength in the training ring, and he shows his strength only at times like this. As a sumo wrestler, I can't forgive him." Isn't that great? So anyway.
He's a sensitive soul.
Yeah. Also, another interesting thing about him, though, when you look at the Ozeki record, he was Kadoban like 14 times. Like he was in and out of Kadoban. And some of the theories on this were that he would not spend the effort with the guys, or at least this was the hubbub. He would not spend the effort on the guys that he would risk injury with or that he knew he could not take. So he would not put that much effort forward. He would be like, I'm going to lose this. And then he would focus in on the easier targets, or the ones that he knew he could win.
Yeah, as long as he put together 8 wins.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was like kind of interesting. I don't know if that's exactly true, but I saw it sourced somewhere in my research enough to be like, that was one way that he maintained, like Tamawashi does in some ways. Tamawashi gives up at the ring's edge when he knows he's had. He doesn't necessarily always fight back because he doesn't want to fall off the doyo as much.
Well, we don't know that, but his style is such that he keeps his opponents away, and he doesn't do Yotsu Sumo if he can at all help it.
Right.
Because Yotsu Sumo can be a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah. So anyway, he has other longevity records. More kachikoshi, or the most kachikoshi wins consecutively in Makauchi was 64 wins in a row. He broke Chiona Fuji's record of Makauchi wins at 807. He broke it at 808 career wins. And over 516 Ozeki wins. That's amazing. And on and on and on. He retired at 38 years and 9 months. He was the oldest Rikishi in over 70 years to beat a Yokozuna. And even crazier, remember in 2011 when all that illegal gambling stuff went down? He stayed in the clear. So, yeah, he just kept clawing his way back up and held on.
Well, and maybe he's teaching us a lesson about how to do sumo. You know, set your sights on 8 men over the course of the 15 days that you feel like you can take, and just take them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
When he retired, he, I think, started out at Tomozuna, and then he established in 2014 his own stable, the Asakayama Beya. And that's in Sumida. Like I said, one of his wrestlers is Kaisei. So if they do have a YouTube channel, and you can see them doing yoga and a number of other things, and it's heavy toy poodle footage, but very enjoyable. And they only come out with like a video a month. It's not a lot. But one thing I really noticed, by the way, Kaio was solidly a Yotsu sumo wrestler. favored the right-hand side.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I did not think that. But anyway, that's beside the point. But anyway, all of the videos, the guys are laughing hysterically all the time. That's one difference between this stable and everywhere else. The guys that are in the stable right now, Kaisei is an assistant coach, but the rest of the guys are pretty much in Makushita and Sadanoumi. And he keeps like a really good group of guys that there's no guys that are crushing everybody else. They kind of come up together. And one of the theories is that he was mentioned as one of the stables that Hakuho was going to have to bring the Miyagano boys to in the and that was, I remember reading that was like one of the heavily favored guys that he was going to go learn how to be an Oyakata from. But it fell through. And one of the things that he has mentioned is that he prefers that his wrestlers don't have anybody that like is so far above and beyond that like rises through the ranks really fast, because he believes the morale of the rest of the guys kind of fades. He wants them all to be on par with each other and coming up slowly together. So hence why perhaps Miyagano ended up with Isagahama. So that's really kind of an interesting thing. But it is a lighthearted, kind of really fun-filled stable, at least from what the YouTube videos are. But everyone I watched and all of the stuff on Twitter you can see and Instagram, you see the guys smiling, laughing, candid stuff. And it gives you this feeling that he does really run, he runs a good stable. And maybe that's because he and his wife is interesting too. She's a former All Japan women's pro wrestling professional wrestler.
Really?
Yes. And they met, she's even more of a badass, while she was undergoing treatment for ovarian cancer. So they've been married for 25 years. She's a cancer survivor. They don't have children, which explains, like, I don't have children. My dog is the center of my world, you know?
Yeah.
It explains why the guys at the stable are their kids as well as the dogs. And they have been married and they seem happy, and it's a well-run, I think, stable.
Well, and it also maybe explains why on Instagram that stable seems really interested in highlighting each one of those boys whenever it's their birthday.
Right.
You know, they always show pictures of them smiling with a birthday cake. It feels very much like family when you watch from Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. His favorite food is steak. Obviously. His nicknames are Gorilla and Gorilla. That's his nickname. Gorilla. Which he does kind of look like a big gorilla, like honking gorilla.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. His blood type is A.
Okay.
And his dog now that you see heavily featured, like I said, I spent last night bawling, crying, because you can go back in time and watch the history of before they lost Chevy and when they lost Chevy. And it's like this sweet little video of him whispering the last moments to Chevy, and he's crying. Every other picture is a sumo wrestler with a poodle in their lap. So they documented this whole thing. And of course, it sent me back, thinking about my dog I had to put down. And I was just in tears. It's just the sweetest thing. And the 25th anniversary that they were out, they took the Ford, their little, surviving one, out on bicycles in their little bicycle. And they went bicycling all around with their little dog in the cart. It's really sweet. It's just a sweet relationship and a sweet love of them and the dogs. And I think the dogs probably help them too in the stable. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine how Miyagano stable would have completely disrupted that vibe?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I kind of understand. Oh, yeah. They were like, no, thank you. We're good as we are. We're okay. We're okay. Thank you.
We don't need that.
He has a autobiography called Herculean Strength. Yeah. And I tried to find it. It's called Kairiki. And I couldn't find a PDF, and even a PDF I can't translate. But I'm trying to see if I can get a copy of it so I could have it translated, because I I'd like to hear about his
Oh, yeah.
experience, from his point of view throughout all of that.
Well, thank you. I didn't know anything about that man, so that's very helpful. Okay, I am going to tell you about a very, very different environment, which does not sound like that at all. Okay, I'm going to tell you about the it's the one I have trouble saying.
Sakaigawa. It's hard.
Sakaigawa is the IE. Sakaigawa. I don't know why it gets stuck in my mouth.
I don't think there's any emphasis on it.
Sakaigawa. It's just hard to say. It's just flat out hard to say. And it would be flat out hard to be there. Let me first just say, okay, sometimes when I started to look up Oyakata, there's like a big story, interesting story about the man himself.
Right.
Sometimes it's really more about the stable and the whole environment. And that's the story of the Sakaigawa stable. Oh, so hard to say.
I got to look up a picture of him.
So I'm going to tell you, I did not recognize him. When I looked up the Oyakata of the stable, I just was like, I've never seen that man. Who is that man? Except that this stable is featured in Sumo Do, the documentary Sumo Do that came out in 2020. If you've seen that, then you've seen this guy. But otherwise, I never would have recognized him. But this is a big stable, and it's got several wrestlers that are in the top division. If they have Oumi in their name, they tend to be from there. So Sadanoumi, Hiradoumi, also has Myogiryu, who does not have an Oumi in his name, but that's okay. Myogiryu is still in Juryo right now, I think. Used to have Goeido.
Yeah.
As well, who was an Ozeki, became Ozeki in 2014. He won the big trophy in 2016, and he is now an Oyakata himself. I can't remember of what stable, but when you think of this place, I want you to think of, I know you've seen footage from the stable, a whole bunch of guys in just a hard training room, just working their butts off. Like Asakayama, it's on that same vein, right? Their head coach is a man who wrestled under the name of Ryogoku. His highest rank was Komusubi. He's 61 now. He was active really in the 1980s through the early 90s.
There's not even any pictures of this guy.
Right? Yeah, he's kind of hard to find. He's not really the big name that Kaio is. Like I said, his highest rank is Komusubi. He won a Juryo championship. He has won an outstanding performance prize and a fighting spirit prize in the top.
He was a premature baby?
Yeah. That's kind of like the big story you find out about him. He's a premature baby that grew up and became a sumo wrestler. I think his biggest claim to fame, like for him as a wrestler himself, is he won 3 gold stars against Chiyonofuji.
Oh.
He seemed to be one of the few guys that could beat Chiyonofuji, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. But truly the only place I've ever seen this guy talk is Sumo Do. And when you watch him talk, he is like so spirited, so believes in the way of sumo, and so believes that his sumo wrestlers are samurai. The coach himself, his life is definitely sumo. He was into soccer as a kid. He was a Nihon University champion. He started in sumo halfway up the ranks, and he really did well. But I think his biggest claim to fame is that he, again, is one of those guys that got through sumo without getting in trouble, without betting, without throwing fights, without a scandal. He was there at the same time as Chiyonofuji. He beat Chiyonofuji. He beat Asahifuji, who is the Asakayama Oyakata. But he didn't. He was there until injuries forced him to retire. It wasn't a hugely long career at all, and I don't know what his injury was. After he retired, he coached at several stables until he got his own stable in 1998. He switched some elder stock in the early 2000s, continued to train wrestlers. His first big success was Goeido.
Wow.
And he is one of those guys that is completely dedicated to training. Think of Goeido, think of Myogiryu, and how hard they train. Goeido is another one of those Ozekis that was there for years.
Yeah, they both kind of scowl, too. They both have like a resting...
Yeah. Scowl face.
Scowl face.
This is not the type of environment where people giggle and laugh.
Right.
And
there's poodles running around.
Yeah, it's not that at all. I've never seen a birthday cake.
It's very serious environment.
Yes. Everyone there is very serious about their sumo training.
He's old school. He's 61 too. So.
Yeah. So he is like sumo. Like when you find quotes from him, it is always that sumo is life or death every day. And these men are samurai and they are putting their life on the line every day. And that is deadly serious. And don't you tell me that it's not. Yeah. That is what these men are doing. That is what I'm training them to do. It is no laughing matter. Cake. I know. I know.
Get him a birthday cake. I did find one picture of him smiling and one picture of him singing. So,
hey, well, that's good.
I mean, it was 40 years ago, but still.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere in the 80s, he decided to sing or smile.
Probably just for one
day.
One day he decided to do it. But this is a man who, I mean, he has dedicated himself to sumo, dedicated himself to the different kinds of training that they can do. He's the guy that probably got his sumo wrestlers to start flipping tractor tires, right? That is why Myogiryu does that, is because this guy was like, you have to train all day, every day, and put your life on the line. So this stable is known for its rigorous training like Asakayama. At the heart of the stable there's 10 rules written on a board, and if you watch Sumo Do, you'll see every single day of training, the wrestlers, they say these rules of training aloud every single day. They recite them at the end of training. They're just very dedicated folks over there. Let's put it that way. That's probably the simplest way to put it. But the coolest thing I think about the stable is there are heroes at this stable. Men at this stable have saved people's lives, not once, but twice.
Oh, okay. That's amazing.
Right? In 2005, during the Nagoya tournament, a wrestler from this stable happened upon a fire that was taking place and climbed up a ladder, rescued a woman on the second floor, brought her back down to get medical attention, and then left because he was on his way to the stable. He was like doing errands. I've got to go. Didn't even tell people who he was. He was just like a warrior.
A masked crusader.
Yeah, a samurai that went up, carried this woman down a ladder to medical attention.
A sumo superhero.
That's right. He didn't leave his name, but they eventually found him, and the fire department, the Aichi Konen Fire Department, sent this sumo stable a letter of appreciation because this young man, put his life on the line for someone else, which is pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
That was 2005. In 2020, this was the stable. I don't know if you remember this story.
I think I do.
5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
A woman in her 30s jumped from a bridge into a river. Mm-hmm. It seems like she was trying to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. A 70-year-old man, who I guess was out walking at 5:30 in the morning, saw this happen, tried to get her out of the river, couldn't get her, was screaming like, help, help, help. The only people that were up, I guess, at 5:30 in the morning were people at this stable. The master heard this guy yelling and sent his wrestlers out, and they pulled this woman up from the river, and she went off to get help.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, the stable received a letter of appreciation for their help in this rescue, this time from the Metropolitan Police Department. So I think that is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, this is also the stable from which a wrestler lost his life in 2021 after falling on his head in a tournament. Yeah. Remember Hiradoumi died 1 month later in the hospital after regaining some movement, but then died later of pulmonary blood clots. That was this stable. And I had forgotten, so much drama surrounds this stable.
Well, and how, you see how close these guys are to each other. And then ranking doesn't separate them when they go back to the stable. So they have been through it, such the highs and lows, I imagine, That's just heartbreaking.
Hiradoumi, Sadanoumi. They've been there through this entire time with all these highs and lows.
Right.
Originally, the stable was started by a yokozuna called Sadanoyama.
Yeah.
Which is why many of them have Sada in their name. Not all of them. Sadanoumi certainly does. But they also have lots of different names. Anyway, and it's been with this current Oyakata since 2003, and he will retire in about 4 years. So who knows where it's going to go to after that. But I just think it's important to think of the environment of the stable, especially as Hiradoumi is starting to rise, you know? And so many men like Myogiryu, Sadanoumi, who have been in the top division for decades, and seem to be able to stay there in those mid to high ranks doing well because of this kind of training environment, which sounds really tough.
Yeah. But I guess if that's what you know, then that's your normal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You might see that the guys down the street have poodles and like have a lot of fun, but you know, this is your environment and that's when you know.
And I'm sure people would say, look at what they've managed to produce.
Right.
As well. Right. Some people would say, well, this guy at Sakaigawa stable has managed to create a whole lot, like multiple wrestlers at this top.
Sekitori.
Yeah. At this top. When his highest rank was Komusubi.
Right.
It's an amazing feat to be able to produce Ozekis when you never reached that far yourself.
Right.
So there's really something to be said for that. And I know he receives commendations for that. Commendation? Whatever.
Who knows?
Who knows what that word is?
Who knows what that word means?
Yeah. But an amazing man. I can't tell you much more about the guy himself. Really, there's not much more written about him.
We can't really actually tell you what he looks like either. There's just like no record of him online.
Well, there is, but I think they're old photos because he's got perfectly black hair. And I'm like, is he 61 with perfectly black hair? I don't know that's a recent photo.
I don't know. There's just not a lot out there.
There really isn't, which is odd. I can't find their stable on YouTube or anything like that.
Well, you know, how many? I mean,
Sakaigawa.
I don't know. There's a lot of 61-year-old I mean, every single website I look at these days that are, I'm sure, maintained by the Oyakata have been updated 2 years ago. So I'm pretty sure that there's an issue with the actual technology that baffles 61-year-old guys.
You're probably right.
Who are former wrestlers.
You're very, very right. I'm going to see if
I know that was the case with Asakayama. I was like, I don't even know if this has been updated in the last year.
Well, let me go to their website. Let me make sure that I went to their website. The official website. Sakaigawa. Yeah, the link doesn't work. That's why.
Oh, that's because somebody hasn't paid their GoDaddy fee or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, how does this work? I don't know.
Because they're dedicated to sumo, as they should be.
They have no time
They're
for
developing heroes.
Social media stuff. They don't have any time for that.
Yeah, exactly. If you know more about the stable or that Oyakata himself, please let me know because I'm interested in the guy. I really want to know more. And if you haven't had a chance to see Sumo Do, I think you can still watch it online. Just look up Sumo Do and follow all the links and watch it. It's very, very good documentary.
Yeah. Of
some really harsh looking sumo training.
Yeah. Well, Myogiryu is Juryo 1, by the way. So we will probably be seeing him at Juryo 1 bumping up day.
What were his results at Juryo 1?
I thought he did well. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. Juryo 1. Oh, just kidding. Juryo wins 12 losses.
Oh,
not so
we won't see him.
We won't be seeing him.
Okay.
Well,
yeah. No, so he's got some injuries there that he's dealing with, it sounds like.
I know. We love Myogiryu, but he's been hobbling into the dojo as of the last couple of tournaments. So
I'm sure he's doing intense physical therapy at the Sakaigawa stable. Hey, I said it okay that time.
You did.
Woo! It only takes a little bit of time. It only takes a full week before I can say it. As of January 2023, it had 19 wrestlers. So that's a big stable.
That is a big stable.
Yeah.
Until next week when we bring you more Oyakata, I am Leslie.
I'm Laurie. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.